that breach in their relationship is called death. Death. Someone has said this, I think this is a good definition. In the Bible, death is not the cessation of existence. It's the cessation of life. I like that. It's not the cessation of existence. It's the cessation of life. Let's talk about death a minute. I think you understand what I'm saying. The word death simply means separation. There are three kinds of death. Physical death is the separation of our spirit from our body. Do you ever go, I know you often go to a funeral home if there's a death of a friend or a loved one, but do you ever walk up to the body lying in the casket and walk up and look, and it's like, people are meandering around saying, oh, doesn't she look nice, and doesn't he look nice? I'm thinking,
well, it's me, they look natural.
Look natural. But the thing that leaps out at me is, well, they look like them, but something's missing. It's like something has left. So it's the separation of the spirit or the soul and the body. Now listen carefully. That's physical death. There's three kinds of death. The second kind of death is spiritual death. And that is the separation between our spirit and God and His Spirit. There's a separation. There's an alienation. There's a fragmentation. There's a breach there. And then there's one more kind of death, and that is, for your reference, and just write it down, Revelation chapter 20, verse 6. But it's called eternal death, or the second death, but I prefer eternal death. And eternal death, basically, understand this, is an eternity of spiritual death. And by the way, there's another name for that. It's not a very nice word, but you know what that word is? I heard it. Hell. Eternal death, or eternal separation of our spirit from God's Spirit, is hell.
What was that chapter and verse in Revelation?
Chapter 20. Chapter 20, verse 6. Now, let me show you something. We're starting to piece together, and I know this is a lot of information, but we're starting to piece together something that's very, very important. And according to the Bible, there is physical death, but a lot of times when it mentions death, it's talking about spiritual death or eternal death. So spiritual death is a condition of the soul. That person may be still existing, still may be walking around, maybe going to work, maybe going to church, but inside, something is dead. In Genesis chapters 1 and 2, we have, I'm going to write man, but I mean mankind, and we have God, and they're dwelling together, and they're walking together in the cool of the day. They're fellowshipping together. There's a communion there. There's a paradise. But when we get to chapter 3, I would draw it like this. And this is death. By the way, John 3:16. How's that go? For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in Him shall not what? Have you ever read that verse and thought, what does that mean? Does that mean then if I really believe in Jesus, I'll never die? That's a good question. This is not, that death is not referring to physical death or even spiritual death, but I think it's referring to eternal death. It's referring to hell. If we believe on Christ, we don't have to worry about hell. Now, in order for us to see the big picture, a lot of times I have to really jump ahead and show you the conclusion of something, and then that way you can come back and it makes a lot of sense to you. But let's talk about it just a moment. You see, man and God were now separated from one another. This chasm of death. Okay? And there's no way that Adam and Eve could have spanned this chasm. If they would have tried to jump, figuratively speaking, they could never have done it. They could never have done enough works. They could have never been good enough or whatever to span this chasm. So man and God are now separated. Man's relationship with God is dead. But isn't it interesting what we do? It's never our fault, is it? So rather than saying, I'm dead to God, what do we say? God is dead. Good old 60s. God is dead. Let's have a funeral. Well, no, that's not accurate. Man is dead. It feels like God is dead. But we're the ones who are dead to him. But let's jump ahead. Let's go to the New Testament real quick. Let me show you the rest of this story, and then this makes more sense. But one day, what mankind could never, ever in a billion years earn or achieve on his own. There's no way we could get from here to here. But God so loved the world that from his side, he laid a bridge. And that bridge is the cross.